Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and today we're going to be doing just that, but we're also going to be talking about some music before we jump into the films that I've been watching for the month of the last part of July into all of August so far when I release this. But before we jump into that, like I said, I will be talking about some other things. I wanted to say a special thank you to everybody who watched my last video and gave me some great feedback on the things that I've been doing, some segments that they thought that they enjoyed, some of the direction that my channel could be going, and yeah, there's just a lot of really great people in the community, and I wanted to say thank you for echoing some of the things that I had in my head, but also just seeing everyone interact in there is just fantastic, and it really is humbling. So I wanted to say thank you. I'm going to be continuing on with the things that I like to make, the content that I want to create for you, but also I'm definitely have an open ear for people, for the things that you might be wanting to watch as well. So it's a little bit of a combination of that. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about besides movies was music, and I wanted to bring up just a little bit of music before I jump into those films. And so if you're not interested in metal, you might want to skip this, but if you are open into that, I highly recommend 3 albums that actually just were recently released today, but I will be filming this the day of the release. It'll be coming out. You can get these on Spotify. If you want to listen to these albums, go to Spotify. So the first band that I want to recommend is the one on my shirt, Between the Buried and Me. And Between the Buried and Me is a band from North Carolina. They are a progressive metal band that incorporates so much to their sound. It's really hard to describe them. They are all over the place. They have some Baroque circusy type of music mixed in with just straight up death metal, and this is the combination of all those things that works out really, really brilliantly. So they actually just made a sequel to this album right here. So this is Colors. This is from 2007. This is probably the most groundbreaking album that they put out. But Colors 2 just came out, and I highly recommend you give it a spin. It is quite an incredible journey. It's the longest album out of the albums that I'm going to recommend today, but it is so worth your time. And it is an album. Now, you can listen to singles off this disc, but I would highly recommend just going through the whole thing because it flows so naturally. And so, yeah, the first album I would recommend is Colors 2 from Between the Buried and Me. And they are just an incredible band. I love them. I wear my shirts often, and it's one of my favorite bands. So I definitely want to recommend that. The next band that I want to recommend is a band that has kind of stripped their original sound a little bit down to a more shoegaze kind of, if you know the band Slowdive or The Cure, it's more akin to that than it is their traditional work that they put out previously. I'm talking about Deaf Heaven. So Deaf Heaven actually put out an album called Infinite Granite. So that is the recent release, Infinite Granite. And like I said before, it sounds very 90s, right? It sounds like an album that is drenched in atmosphere. It's very relaxing. It's almost hauntingly chilling how perfect it is for the summer, right? It feels like a summer album. It's something you can just put on and relax to. Now, speaking of summer albums, they actually were put on the map from this album right here, Sunbather. And I actually have a shirt. I have a Deaf Heaven shirt, Sunbather. But like I said earlier, this is a black metal band. So this is a band that they have a foot in shoegaze and a foot in black metal. And a lot of their albums previously to Infinite Granite were more of a combination of the two. It's more focused on maybe the black metal side of things. So arpeggios, blast beats, you know, the type of growling that has the black metal trademark to it. But this one has singing in it, and is, like I said, it's really relaxing. It's a very different shift from what Deaf Heaven normally put out, but I highly, highly recommend it. If you're not a fan of metal whatsoever, this is the album to listen to, and I would definitely highly recommend Infinite Granite from Deaf Heaven. And then the last album I want to talk about is a band from Washington, and Washington, the state. They are another black metal band, but in a different branch altogether. Also drenched in atmosphere, but in a very different sense. More of the like forest, or like you're in the middle of a cave and you don't know where you're at, and you're just hearing these different sounds. It's kind of creepy but ethereal, but not creepy. I don't know how to describe it, but I'm talking about Wolves in the Throne Room. And Wolves in the Throne Room put out Primordial Arcana, but it is their newest release, and it is the most natural album from them. So if you've listened to Wolves in the Throne Room in the past, if you've listened to like Two Hunters or anything like Thrice Woven, their last album they put out, they are an incredible piece, artist that puts together some things that you wouldn't expect and the traditional black metal sense, but also mix it in with that atmosphere. And I think they do it they blend it beautifully with this album, and I think it's actually the most natural album for them, and I quite enjoy it, and I need to listen to it a little bit more just to get a few more of those reps in to listen to this band, because it really is just like with all three of these artists and all three of these albums, these are all requires you to listen to them kind of critically. When I say that, I also mean to be active with it. So these are all albums that are focused on the albums, not really focused on the songs per se. So I'd highly recommend, if you have any time and you're free or you're like to drive or anything, listen to any of these albums, and they're incredible. Or spread those out. But I wanted to say thank you for listening to that little segment. If any of you are interested more into my music taste, let me know in the comment section down below if you'd like a separate video of me talking about music a little bit more. But I haven't really talked about it on the channel before. So anyway, let's now jump into the films that I've been watching for the last part of July and all of August thus far. Alright, so I hope I didn't lose all of you, but the first movie that I watched near the end of July was Joe Wright's 2005 adaptation of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Now, I have not read Pride and Prejudice, nor have I seen any of the other adaptations, like the series, nor have I seen the original one. I have the original one behind me. It's a Warner Archive right there. But I watched this one with Keira Knightley, and it also has Matthew McFadden in it, and wow. I've been wanting to watch this for a while. It's been on my shelf for a couple years actually now, but I was waiting for a good time to watch it, and I had some period pieces in my mind, and I definitely wanted to check it out. And Joe Wright has done things like Atonement and also Darkest Hour, so I already know he can tackle period pieces very, very well, and I think he does a really fantastic job in this work in this Jane Austen adaptation. I think it's incredibly beautiful. The set design, the production, the costume design, everything looks just splendid. And the characters in this are just a lot of fun. So if you haven't seen Pride and Prejudice, I'm the last one on earth probably who has seen it, but I really enjoyed it, and I would like to say that I quite recommend this to everybody else to check this one out. So check out Pride and Prejudice if you have not seen that one. All right, so next we're actually going to jump into a film from 1941. It is a musical comedy starring Fred Astaire and Rita Hayworth, and I actually have this in this Rita Hayworth set. This is a Rita Hayworth The Ultimate Collection, 12 Legendary Performances. This is out on Mill Creek. This is a great collection because a lot of these films I have not seen. I've only seen one film outside of the film that I'm talking about just now. But I have seen The Lady from Shanghai, which is also in this. I have a Blu-ray on its own over there that I have seen it. But I need to watch more Rita Hayworth, and this is what this did for me. So when I watched You'll Never Get Rich, I didn't really know what to expect. Obviously, it's a Fred Astaire film, so I kind of expected singing and dancing. And, Rita Hayworth does a fantastic job alongside Fred Astaire. I think they are both a great duo, and I didn't expect Rita Hayworth to dance as much as she did and as well as she did, because I am very new to Rita Hayworth, so I don't. So if you can tell me in the comment sections how do you not know that? It's totally because I haven't seen many of her performances or what she's done in the past. So this is a really fun one, and it's a good one from 1941. And I would definitely recommend it. I'd recommend this set if you're interested in checking out some of her filmography. This is a great set. I know there's a DVD one too that has a little bit more added to that set, but this Blu-ray copy is quite fun, and I definitely would recommend this one. All right, so the next film that I watched is a Mario Bava film from 1966. It is an Italian film, and I have been wanting to watch some horror all the way in August, right? Or I guess late July, maybe early August when I wanted to see this, because I've been having a horror itch and I wanted it scratched. So I watched Kill Baby Kill, and I quite enjoyed this one. It is drenched in that gothic horror atmosphere, almost that you would see in a Hammer film around this time period, but is very Italian, right? I guess, Giallo films that Mario Bava would be kind of known a little bit for. And I think this is a really great combination of a thriller, horror, kind of gothic horror mystery of sorts. There's this little girl in this Eastern European town who is like killing off, or at least so the villagers think, are killing off people or making people kill themselves. And the atmosphere of this film is just fantastic, and it's exactly what I needed and exactly what I wanted. And I want to jump into more Mario Bava films. So if anyone would recommend some of those, I have seen Black Sunday and Black Sabbath, both by Bava, but I haven't seen many other films by this director. But I'm definitely curious to know what you would recommend. So let me know more Mario Bava films down in the comment section down below. All right, so these next 5 films are actually the start of my Mad Lib Syntax Challenge. I was able to watch 15 films, and that's these next 15 films. So this is the first 5. So the Mad Lib Syntax Challenge was, if anyone is unaware, is where I wanted to create a sentence out of the titles of the films. So none of these have any linkage otherwise than just that I made a sentence. So these are the first 5. So if you're unfamiliar with what I started off with A Single Man, In The Hunt for Red October, Rushes, Topsy-Turvy, In Doubt. So, like I said, there is no thematic connection to any of those films, but I watched these all for the first time, and so it was good. It's a good little exercise for me to check out films that have been on my shelf for quite some time. So the first film I watched was a Tom Ford directorial debut, A Single Man. Has Colin Firth, Julianne Moore is in this as well. But man, oh man, this movie is very melancholic. It has some really fantastic performances, really beautiful set designs, costume designs. Obviously, Tom Ford is a designer, and so a fashion designer, and so obviously everything in this movie looks gorgeous and looks really pretty. But the performance by Colin Firth is just incredible, and it really is just a day in the life of this guy who's contemplating something. And I don't really want to get into that, but I will say check this film out. Tom Ford, he's only made, I think, 2 films so far. I think he made this in Nocturnal Animals back in 2016. This was his debut. Both of those films, I think, are really fantastic. And I also just love when somebody who's not traditionally a director would come in and do something so successfully, too. That's what A Single Man reminds me of. So if you haven't seen this movie, certainly check this one out. It's got great performances, got, like I said, great production, and is definitely worth your time. So A Single Man, I'd highly recommend this one. So the next film I decided to watch is from 1990. It is a kind of a thriller espionage film right at the end of the Cold War, right? So 1990, the Cold War is kind of ended, and I'm talking about The Hunt for Red October. This has Sean Connery, and it also has Alec Baldwin in it. And Sean Connery is a really weird Russian. It's super easy to see through that Russian accent. That's the funny part about this movie. But it is a really great thrilling espionage submarine film. And the submarine is, Sean Connery is possibly defecting from the USSR and headed towards the US waters. And so the mission is more or less to kind of intercept that. And there's a lot of really great sequences in this film. Maybe some CGI that doesn't really hold up to today's standard, but there's some really great performances, like I said, by Baldwin. Actually, this is one of the few Alec Baldwin films that I really like him in. And it's him as a young Alec Baldwin, I suppose, before he got a little bit bigger. And, you know, like I said, Sean Connery is a little bit of fun in this one. He's got that accent that is... they throw it away very quickly. Hugo Weaving is also in this, and there's a lot of other people in this that I am blanking on right now. It's been about a month since I've seen it. But it is a fun film, and I would recommend it. It's definitely probably one of the weakest films that I'm going to be talking about, but it's a lot of fun. So Hunt for the Red October, I finally was able to watch this one for the first time. It was a fun watch. All right, so the next film I'm going to talk about is a film directed by Ron Howard. And Ron Howard is not somebody that I think makes incredible films. He makes good films. Some of them are okay. But this is actually one of his better films, I think, from what I've seen so far. And I actually am talking about Rush. And Rush is actually a real, it's like a biography on 2 Formula One racers. An English playboy, James Hunt, who's played by Chris Hemsworth. And it also has the Austrian opponent, Niki Lauda, who is played by Daniel Bruhl. And Daniel Bruhl and Chris Hemsworth do a fantastic job in this. I actually think Bruhl does the better job in this film. He's kind of the underdog of the entire film. But the English playboy, played by Chris Hemsworth, he does a fantastic job. And honestly, like I was mentioning Ron Howard a little bit earlier, In the Heart of the Sea is another film that both those collaborated with. And I actually really like that. So I think Chris Hemsworth and Ron Howard have a good combination, a little bit of a good currency going on between them. But yeah, this is actually a really great biography. And I watched this after I saw Ford vs. Ferrari, which is a completely different racing movie, by the way. This is Formula One. But I could definitely see some echoes of the two. It's almost like a decade apart, I believe, because this came out like in 2013, so not that long ago, but it's definitely one that I missed, and I definitely wanted to check this one out. So let me know what you think about Rush. I'm sure I'm one of the last people who have seen this movie, but it was quite a good time, and I quite enjoyed it. And I was really kind of surprised by Ron Howard. So yeah, Rush, if you've seen it, let me know in the comment section down below. Next is actually the first film that I ever watched directed by Mike Leigh. I hope I'm saying his name correct. English director Mike Leigh. This is from 1999. This is in the Criterion collection, Topsy Turvy. And you can actually switch it around. So this is 160 minutes, so it's a long one. And I actually was mistaken about this film. I actually thought this was going to be a musical, but it's totally not that. It's really behind the scenes of this troupe from 1885, this comic opera, The Mikado. That's what they're trying to perfect this next play, and everyone who is stressed out about it. So Jim Broadbent is in it, Alan Coriander, and a slew of cast members in this. But it's a really fantastic world, because like I said, it's 1885, so it is just it's interesting to see English society kind of coping with this globalism and colonialism, really, too, mixed in with like the behind the scenes of like what a theater production would look like, and really seeing all those different interactions. And so I was, like I said, I was totally blown away and just kind of mistook that I thought this was going to be a musical. For some reason, I don't know why in my head I thought that was the case, but I had a really good time with this, and it's really enthralling. It's dialogue driven. The performances are fantastic, and I would definitely recommend it. It's definitely one that I probably won't be returning to anytime soon, but I was definitely happy with my first film that I watched by Mike Leigh. And I'm going to talk about him in a little bit, in a second, actually, in my next section. And then the last film that I'm going to talk about in this syntax challenge right here is Doubt, from 2008. It's starring Meryl Streep and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Also has Amy Adams, and even like Viola Davis is in this movie too. One of the best scenes of the movie. Wow. This is actually based on a Pulitzer Prize play. And man, it's adapted very, very well. I think this is an incredible film that I was kind of just blown away by the performances of all the people I just mentioned. All of them play fantastic roles. Philip Seymour Hoffman is a parish priest who's really popular and young, and Meryl Streep is this is about a school in I guess the northeast, so on the east coast of America. And Meryl Streep is a little bit more old school and definitely has like rules with like an iron fist, and I guess a ruler. Is a little bit more traditional and strict, but they're based all that mixed in with some kind of sexual predation going on potentially, and you get a really interesting concept, and also something that is very terrifying at the same time. So I think I've talked about it a little bit. I feel like I've meandered a little bit with this, but it is incredible. So Doubt, if you're in for a gut punch, check this movie out, because it's certainly worth your time. All right, so the next batch of films is another sentence that I created, and this one's a little bit different. It has 5 films that I think the sentence doesn't make as much sense, but another year of somebody to watch over me, in waking life's body double, is All That Heaven Allows. So I'm going to be talking about those films. So the first film I talked about is Another Year, another Mike Leigh film, and oh my god, so Jim Broadbent's in this as well, just like he was in Topsy Turvy. One of the main characters, Leslie Manville. Ruth Sheen's in this as well. So I think Jim Broadbent and Ruth Sheen are husband and wife, and you see their marriage and all their friends and family. There's a lot of things going on. They've been happily married for quite some time, and things are just kind of, ebbing and flowing. And a lot of their friends are either like just single or going through really rough patches. There's deaths in this movie. It really is just kind of showcasing the trials and tribulations of this couple and all the people that they're surrounding around. So it's actually like, it's very heartfelt, but is also crushing at the same time, because it just shows you what life is, right? And just like in the title suggests, it's another year. It just feels like another year in the life. And so it kind of goes through seasons in this movie, which I think is really brilliant, the way they set this film up. But yeah, it's incredible performances. This is definitely the film. I like this more than Topsy Turvy. because it just feels a little bit more apt to today's world and also what's going on in society. And I do not envy growing old and then kind of seeing if there's any kind of concept of my friends and families just going through the troubles that they're going through. It's going to be just difficult to do that, just alongside maybe having a partner and seeing what that looks like. So it's a great film, and I would recommend it. It's on Sony Pictures Classic, and I have not gone wrong with Sony Pictures Classic. So if you haven't seen Another Year, I highly recommend it. It's definitely worth a watch. All right, so the next film I'm going to talk about is from 1987. It's actually directed by Ridley Scott, and it is Someone to Watch Over Me. This has Mimi Rogers in it and Tom Berenger. And it's really kind of just the detective film, like a new neo-noir that you would see, just kind of piggybacking off those 70s noirs, or neo-noirs, I suppose. Something along the lines of like The Long Goodbye, if you would, or even like the Humphrey Bogart noirs. But this is definitely, feels like a film that Ridley Scott had just recently made Blade Runner a few years prior to this. And you can definitely see the atmosphere of the city. And you can see, just based on the production of everything and everything kind of going on around these characters, it really is atmospheric. It's very moody. This is a very moody film. But this is out on Shout Select. This is Spy Number 69. Nice. But yeah, this is actually a film that I think is on sale right now. It's not actually that much money if you want to go on Amazon and order this. But it is a fun film. And when I say that, I mean like it's just kind of one of those typical noir thriller films, and I really love the climax. The climax is like, the tension is there, and yeah, the family is involved as well. But yeah, it got great performances. I like Mimi Rogers' character, kind of just showcasing Tom Berenger, who is from a completely different side of the city, and really just they fall in love with each other and for the wrong reasons and stuff. So that actually might be one of the things, the flaws of this movie, is that I don't feel like that was necessarily warranted based on Tom Berenger's wife and that character. But anyway, I think you would definitely enjoy watching this movie if you haven't seen this one before, and kind of seeing those twists and turns yourself. So yeah, Someone to Watch Over Me. Have you seen it? Let me know in the comment section down below. All right, so the next film I'm going to be talking about is one that has been on my radar for the longest time, and I actually picked it up maybe about a year ago, but I finally popped it in. It's 2001's Richard Linklater's Waking Life. And Waking Life is, whoa, what a movie. How to describe it? This is a film that's a spiritual sequel to Slacker and Before Sunrise, but it is definitely like a walk and talk kind of movie where there's just a bunch of characters. It reminds me of Slacker a lot, because it really kind of is just going between character and character and character, having these just stream of consciousness conversations about dreams, about afterlife, about a slew of intellectual topics. Some of them sound a little bit, if I'm going to be honest, it sounds a little bit arrogant, or kind of just like I'm hearing myself talk. But at the same time, the way it's performed by the people who are involved in the film, but also just the art style of this film. This is a very unique film. This is an animated film, and the animation is really, really, really trippy, and almost each segment is different than the other one. So each conversation that somebody's having with somebody it just seems like it's in a whole other world. So it's definitely a trip, and this is actually out on Arrow Video right here. And so this actually is a Region B release. I don't know if it's out on Region A yet. But yeah, this is actually a really great film. I really love Richard Linklater, and so this is a film that it's gonna require me a couple times to watch this movie and get a few more things out of it. But just being mesmerized by the art style is probably the biggest thing for me with this film. So if you like kind of those experimental films, that, especially when it comes to animation, I highly recommend Waking Life, and I think it's a good time. But yeah, like I said, it's a hard movie to get into because there's a lot of things going on with it. So the next film we're going to be talking about is actually from Indicator. This is Spy Number 2, and it is directed by Brian De Palma, and it is coming from 1984, so it's one of the earlier De Palma releases. We're talking about Body Double right here. And so Body Double has quite a great cast here. We have Craig Wasson in it, Greg Henry, and Melanie Griffith in it. And this is a film that the voyeurism is like on full display. It's very like this right here looks like Rear Window, because it has a very Rear Window, the Hitchcock kind of vibe to it, which De Palma really is a master at those kind of things. The sexual voyeurism that is involved with his films. And this one is on top notch, because there's actually even like porn stars in this movie that are real life porn stars that are in this film itself, acting as well. And it's really interesting. In that sense, I'm not saying, anyway, we're going to get past that. But this is a really, I think, fascinating tale. And there's no characters that really you want to cling to, because they're all kind of scumbags in this movie. But it is really interesting to kind of see where things kind of go. And who kills who, because there's some really interesting and cool kills in this movie. And I think there's some homages to a few things, and I really, really like it. So Body Double, I had a good time with it. It's definitely not one of my favorite releases that I'm talking about, but it's definitely a fun time. Even though there's some things that are definitely a little bit dated when it comes to the concepts in society, what we find acceptable. But it's schlocky, it's fun, and that's exactly what I wanted when I wanted to watch this movie. All right, so the next film, the last film in this segment, is All That Heaven Allows from 1955. This is a Douglas Sirk film. Actually, I'm lying. It's not the last film that I talked about with this section. I also wanted to talk about Ali, Fear Eats the Soul, but we'll talk about that in a second. So this film by Douglas Sirk is just an absolutely gorgeous American film. From 1955, Douglas Sirk talks a lot about domestic issues, and I believe that Rock Hudson and we also have Jane Wyman in this film. This is a love interest. Jane Wyman, who lives in this particular neighborhood, she has a gardener, Rock Hudson, and she is in a lot of these social circles. She's a widow. She's got 2 kids, and she's just recently lost her husband. But Rock Hudson pops up in her life as the gardener, but also is interesting and has a cup of coffee with her, and has his own kind of world in life, and they kind of fall for each other. And it's really about how everyone kind of turns their back on them because they don't see this these 2 different conflicting worlds. Because this guy who's a gardener, who's a lower class and definitely not within this society, within this community whatsoever, where we have Jane's character who is nothing like that, and she's not used to the type of stuff that Rock Hudson's character is doing. And so I think it's interesting to kind of see the dynamics between how awful people can be just based on acceptance. And I think that's the interesting thing about this, but also on the fact that there's actually there's like an age gap between this as well, because Jane Wyman's character is an older widow, and Rock Hudson is maybe a younger man. And so there is quite a little bit of an age gap here. You would see something like later on in Harold and Maude, and then also Ali, Fear Eats the Soul, which we'll talk about. But yeah, this is just, has got a lot of things that you wouldn't expect a 1955 film to talk about. And I think that's what Douglas Sirk does so well in this movie. And I was just blown away, not just by those topics, but also just by the production and the camera work and like just the set design. It was just a gorgeous movie. It feels like a very incredibly fall film. And honestly, I kind of want to watch it when the fall months come back again, because it's such a charming film, but also it's got so much hate in it and love at the same time. It's just one of those films that you just don't forget. You just don't forget it, and it's a special one from fav. So I was talking about Ali, Fear Eats the Soul. So this is actually from 1974, and this is actually a German film directed by Rainer Werner Fassbinder, and this is actually like an homage to All That Heaven Allows. And that's the reason I watched it, is because I wanted to see the similarities and the differences. And it actually is quite different. It is, once again, is about an older woman who doesn't have her husband anymore, and then a younger man. But this younger man, I don't remember the country that he's from, but they are in Germany. But he is an Arab worker from an Arab country, and they fall in love with each other because she randomly walks into a bar in Germany, and this bar is specific to this group that is not German, right? And so this bar really kind of just fits the needs of Arabs. And so with that being said, like, it is a really weird opening shot of this woman who's just trying to get out of the rain into this, like, oh yeah, I'll just get a Coke, and then I just kind of sit around, and then everyone's just staring at her We have our main character, Ali, who just comes to, comfort her and just dance with her for a second. And then they just kind of fall for each other, like they're interested in each other. And it's very interesting because, one, it is about an older man, a younger man and an older woman, but it's also a mixed race relationship. And so with that relationship, there's a lot of people in Ali's friends who aren't really accepting that, but also all of the tenants and all the sons and daughters of our main German. And so it's just really, really great. So Bridget Mira is our widow, and the young Arab worker is, I'm going to say his name wrong, El Hadi bin Salim. So they meet each other and they kind of fall in love with each other, and then they marry, and it really is kind of the ups and downs of that relationship and the people that they're surrounded by. And so this is a nice adaptation or homage, like I would say, to this All That Heaven Allows. And this film is incredible. I have only seen a few Rainer Werner Fassbinder films, but this is definitely one that I wanted to see, and I'm not displeased by that. And I actually would highly recommend watching both of these films. These are both from Criterion. This is Spy number 95. This is Spy number 198. So these are early on in the Criterion collection, and I was finally able to watch them, and boy oh boy did I enjoy both of them. And it also was really tough to watch both of them too, because like I said, there's a lot of things going on between these couples. So yeah, if you've seen those movies, let me know in the comment section down below. All right, so we are to the last sentence, right? The last 5 films in this recommendations, this Q series. So these are the films that I'll be talking about. We have The Insult, we have The Wrong Man, In Cold Blood, we have Scream and Scream Again, and we have The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming. So the sentence that I created is: the insult of The Wrong Man, In Cold Blood, makes me scream and scream again, The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming. These movies are completely different. So let's talk about The Insult. So The Insult is a Palestinian film, and it is about a Palestinian refugee and a Lebanese Christian, and their argument that leads to this court case in this highly tumultuous and broiled conversation about nationality, religion, politics. It's a very sensitive topic, especially in the Middle East, especially in this area right here. And like I said, we are in Lebanon in this film, and it really is focusing on, this identity, this national identity, but also like these centuries and centuries of things that have kind of built up with these nationalities, and also with religion and politics. And this is just a really fantastic courtroom drama, kind of explaining some of those situations a little bit. Obviously, the context is, for people who are outside, we don't understand everything, but we can understand enough, and there's enough tension and buildup within this film, in the court case that follows at the end of the film. And I think it's a really great job that really just points the fingers to everyone being wrong, and everybody really kind of being in the wrong with how they responded and how they react to these things. And so I think this is a film that really does a good job of showing that conflict, and also showing like how kind of insane these concepts are, and why we hate each other, and the things that we do to each other that can lead to other things. And there's this weird notion of respect in this film too. It's a crazy film. I can't really talk about it too much, but I would say highly recommend checking out The Insult. This is actually out on Cohen Media, and is a really hard movie to watch. I'm talking about a lot of movies that are just really difficult to watch, but compelling drama. Highly recommend it. The next film I watched is an Alfred Hitchcock film. It's one of the Alfred Hitchcock films that I hadn't seen, and this is actually from 1956, and I'm talking about The Wrong Man. This has Vera Miles in it and Henry Fonda. And Henry Fonda is a character who is wrongly accused of this bank robbery, and in the wrong place, the wrong time. And I enjoyed this movie quite a bit up until the last act, I want to say. And I know I'm not going to talk about it because it's an Alfred Hitchcock film, right? These are thrillers and these are noirs, and that like the last half act is kind of just like, oh, here's everything. Everything is kind of coming together. But I really like Henry Fonda's character in this movie. But not just that, but his wife, Vera Miles, this is crazy. So this is a movie that actually is based on a true event, which Hitchcock never really did. And so this is actually based on a true story. And Vera Miles' character is Henry Fonda's wife. And she actually kind of goes crazy based on all the fervor of her husband being arrested and like, what about the kids? Like, what's going to happen? Like, are you telling me the truth? She starts seeing things that aren't there, or, you know, that's probably the most interesting thing about this movie, I think, is Vera Miles. But Henry Fonda does a fantastic job of somebody who's like, I didn't do any of this. Try to prove his innocence. So it's worth your time. It's definitely worth your time, but it's definitely one of the Hitchcock films that's not my favorite necessarily. Like I said, the last act, not something that really compelled me. But yeah, The Wrong Man, have you seen it? This is actually out on Warner Archive, so you can get it on Amazon. And then the next film I got is one from 1967. This is Spy Number 781 from the Criterion Collection. This is Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. So actually this is based on a book by Capote. This is directed by Richard Brooks, and is starring two like no-name actors, Robert Blake and Scott Wilson, who give authentic, unshowy performances as Perry Smith and Dick Hickok. In 1959, murdered a family of four in Kansas during a botched robbery. And this film is told in a lot of flashbacks, and it came out in 1967, so that's a really important date to remember that. So this had, 8 years prior, this event really happened. And this murder seems very senseless of this Kansas family. We're seeing a lot of flashbacks in this movie and kind of piecing together what happened exactly. You know what happened. These four people were murdered, but like what drove them to this? And it's a tough movie to watch. And I think the performances, like it says on the back, are very authentic and I think very well done and well created. With these characters who were kind of driven, were already a little bit mad, just based on past traumas themselves, and they inflicted it on this family, unmercifully, and that's just kind of what we see with this film. So it's a really tough subject, and it is tough to see because in 1967, even this is actually quite brutal for this time period too, and so kind of seeing that shift. And film at this time. So In Cold Blood, I'd recommend checking this one out, definitely, and I definitely can't wait to read the source material as well. Next is a film from Amicus, directed by Gordon Hessler, and actually has three big horror stars. Like I said, I've been in a little bit of a horror kick. I have a little thing I want to watch some horror, but this has Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, and even Peter Cushing is in it for like a millisecond in this movie. Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee are in it not that long either. Vincent Price probably gets the most screen time. This is a very choppy film. It's fun. There's a lot of really crazy things going on. And I guess the screenplay originally there was going to be aliens in this movie, but anyway, you'll see what this movie's all about once you watch it. But it's got a really great score, and that score. Let's see who did the score. I want to figure this out before I even jump into it. Music. Come on, you're not going to tell me the music. But it is based on a novel by Peter Saxon. The music is very, very 70s, like 60s and 70s. So this came out in 1970. Very jazzy. It's a UK and US based production. They kind of did this together. But like I said, the story's all over the place. It's really kind of crazy. Vincent Price does a really fun job in this movie. Christopher Lee, just the brooding guy who's trying to put things together. Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing's barely in it. Christopher Lee, did I just mention him? He's in this movie, being broody as ever. But this movie's fun. It's a fun little science fiction film, mixed with horror and like some spy-related things. But like I said, it's very choppy. So I had a good time with it, but it was definitely like, okay, I guess I need to watch this movie again. It reminded me of the Dracula, the Satanic Rites of Dracula. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit. So yeah, if you haven't seen Scream and Scream Again, this is actually out on Kino Lorber. Let me know what you thought. And speaking of the last film from Kino Lorber as well, this one movie came out from 1966. It's directed and produced by Norman Jewison, and I'm talking about The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming. This has Carl Reiner, Eva Marie Saint, Alan Arkin, who plays a Russian, Brian Keith, Jonathan Winters, Theodore Bickel, and Paul Ford. This is a fun film. Also, it has a lot of heart, especially near that last act. But the Russians accidentally land in this this coastal town, very small town, and hilarity ensues. And this small band of Russians are sent to the shore to kind of like scope the town and try to take over the town. But things don't work out the way they are supposed to. Alan Arkin, like I said, it plays one of the lead Russians in this film. And really, it's about the town kind of just coping with this, and this one family too, dealing with these Russians. And there's a lot of really funny moments in this movie. The Cold War paranoia, it takes a new role on that, right? Because this is the 60s, so Cold War is very present. But it's very interesting the way they take this movie. And I had a really fun time with this one. And by the end of it, I was just smiling from ear to ear because I just loved the way that it ended. But yeah, if you haven't seen The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming, I highly recommend it. It's definitely one of my more fun films of the bunch that I saw. So yeah, that's what I watched for the month of the last part of July and most of August. So I want to say thank you so much for checking this video out. I hope you liked the music talk at the very beginning. I hope you liked the films that I talked about as well. And I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. Comment down below, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.